Be sure to register for the online class I teach on the weekend. On Saturdays, it is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, and we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So you can use this information with your children. Also, I would say the content is PG-13, and it's very interactive. You know, we have a ton of information in it. It's very visual. We deal with ancient Africa. We deal with the Nile Valley region of Africa, ancient civilizations, and we go throughout history and deal with, you know, what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, let me flip over this here. So I'll post the link again. You can register for the class. Then also it's at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, so some of the things we deal with in the online course, we deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. We deal with some of the origins of Freemasonry, and we deal with similarities between the layout of Washington, D.C. and ancient Kemet also. Tony Browder deals with this a lot in Egypt on the Potomac. Browder deals with this a lot in Egypt on the Potomac also, and that's one of the books we use in the class. So we deal with the first Holy Trinity of Ausar, Auset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Isis, Osiris, and Horus. And we deal with a timeline of history as well, thousands of years that lead up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay. And when we look at the Tekhen that comes out of the mythology of Ausar, Auset, and Heru, the Greeks called it an Obelisk. There were approximately 1,200 Tekhenu built in ancient Kemet, but only about a dozen are found today in Egypt. And many of the Tekhenu removed from Egypt are now in Istanbul, Turkey, London, England, Paris, France, Berlin, Germany, New York, Rome, Italy, Vatican City, and elsewhere throughout the world. The Tekhenu are now called obelisks by their new owners, and few know their origin or that they symbolize the resurrection of the African king Ausar. If you read Egypt on the Potomac, page 17, Browder breaks this down there. Now, I'm going to just deal with a couple of quick things here because I'm having some technical difficulties here. So the word Mason is derived from the Latin words mass and sun. Mason means child of light and expresses the desire to pursue light, which is a metaphor for the sun, which symbolizes knowledge. The term child of light or sons and daughters of light was first used to identify students who had completed 42 years of study in the temples of ancient Kemet. Many Masonic temples were modeled after the temples of ancient Kemet, places where light or knowledge was imparted in a series of steps or degrees. Okay. Now, if we look at, so there's over 200 slides in the class, and we do a PowerPoint presentation. I have over 50 articles that we reference, various books. You don't have to buy any of the books to be able to follow along in class. But we go through and look at history, everything from the judgment scene to and then if we go through, let's see here. We look at some of the origins of Christmas as well and why Christmas is celebrated on December 25th. One thing that's important to understand is the patron saints. We look at Sinterklaas and Saint Nicholas, because Saint Nicholas was a real saint. He was an African man, 4th century Myra, and was present day Turkey. Greek Orthodox bishop, born in 280 AD, Common Era, born to wealthy parents, and gave away his inheritance to the poor. And one of the things we talk about is Sinterklaas, who is the religious is a religious character that we see in Holland and the Netherlands, things like this. Sinterklaas in Dutch means Saint Nicholas. Okay, Sinterklaas in the Dutch language means Saint Nicholas, and we're going to see that it's going to be this religious figure of Sinterklaas that wears red and white. We're going to see that it's this religious figure that then gets transformed into Santa Claus. Okay, it's this religious figure of Sinterklaas that gets transformed into Santa Claus, and Santa Claus wears red and white also. We're going to see that Sinterklaas gets introduced by the Dutch to the U.S., to the colonies in the early 1700s, even before the American Revolutionary War. You have an influx of Dutch coming in, and they bring Sinterklaas with them. Okay, and Sinterklaas has a sidekick who's a Moor named Zwarte Piete, Black Pete. So we get into this mythology in the class, and this deals with the dehumanization of the Moors also. Okay, Zwarte Piete means Black Pete, and one of the versions of the story, Black Pete is a Moor who is really a slave to Sinterklaas. Some say a servant, some say a slave to Sinterklaas. But Black Pete was introduced in a children's book in right about 1850, and you have this parade of people dressing up as Black Pete in the Netherlands around December 5th, and they're wearing they put on blackface makeup, afro wigs, red lipstick on their lips, things like this, to imitate Black Pete. Usually gold hoop earrings as well, to imitate Black Pete. But this is very dehumanizing, and each year there's more and more backlash against this celebration that takes place. All right. Dominique said, thanks for being consistent. This ain't easy, trust me. So we deal with the origins of the, Immaculate Conception story and the virgin birth and the adoration, things like this. These are very ancient stories that date back to at least 3300 BC in ancient Nubia, Ta-Nehisi. These are stories retold over and over again, adapted to various people's cultures. We deal with why Christmas is celebrated on December 25th as well. So we go throughout history to understand what happened to us. We look at the, even before slavery existed, we deal with the African presence in the Americas and in South America, going back at least 56,000 years ago. We look at some work from Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Some of you all have seen the interviews I've done with him. He's a friend of mine. I've interviewed him a number of times. Some of you have heard seen some of the interviews. Some of you have read his book. His new book is out. His second one, The First Americans Were Africans, Revised and Expanded. We deal with we look at some of the pre-Christian origins of Christmas as well. The festival of Yule, Saturnalia, the Roman festival of Saturnalia, the Persian festival of Mithra. These are precursors to the Christian celebration of Christmas. Okay, so you know, historical events don't happen in a vacuum. They are the culmination of a sequence of historical events that take place, and we have to understand how all this is connected. All right, we look at the film Black Panther and the African influence in the film Black Panther. There were 11 different African cultures that we see represented in the film Black Panther. And when you see the Panther deity of Bast, the Black Panther, the Black actual Panther deity that they say watches over the people of Wakanda. Well, Bast or Bastet in ancient Kemet was an ancient Egyptian goddess or ancient Kemetic goddess or neter, worshipped in the form of a lioness and later a cat. She was a neter of warfare in Lower Kemet and worshipped as early as the Second Dynasty, or around 2890 BCE, before the Common Era. When we look at Wakanda in the comic books and Wakandan religion and its tribes, the religion of the Wakandan people, and Wakanda is made up of 18 different clans of people, or 18 different cultures. Okay, you have the Jabari tribe, you have the crocodile tribe, things like that. Wakanda, even though it's one nation, there are different ethnic groups in Wakanda. There's 18 different tribes that make up the people of Wakanda. So the religion of the Wakandan people first developed through the pilgrimage to the land. In their conflict with the originators, the gods of Wakanda formed from the heroes of humans within the tribe. Ascending to the status of a god, these heroes became known as the Orishas. Now, the Orishas are the name. That's what the deities in the spiritual system of Ifa, practiced amongst the Yoruba in Nigeria, is called the Orisha. The deities, the forces of nature, just like the Neteru, they're called the Orisha. Taking the names Koku, Thoth. Now, Thoth is what the Greeks call Dehuti. Okay, Dehuti is the one that delivers the Annunciation to the Virgin Auset that she's going to give birth to Heru, who the Greeks called Horus, what you call an Immaculate Conception. That's Dehuti, who is the neter of divine articulation of speech and science and mathematics, things like this. That's Dehuti that has the ibis, the deity with the ibis head. That's Dehuti that delivers the Immaculate Conception. Okay, well, the Greeks called Dehuti Thoth. So you have the names Koku, Thoth, Bast, coming from Bastet, from ancient Kemet, Mujaji, and Ptah, which is one of the original neter, Ptah, coming from ancient Kemet, and Niami. The Orishas' origins date back to the ancient Egyptian beings known as the Ennead. Now, this is straight from the Black Panther comic book. This is straight from the world of Wakanda. The Ennead is Greek, which means 9. It refers to the original 9 Neteru, the Ennead. So when you get into so this is just a few other things that we deal with in the class is deep. That's why it's 10 weeks, right? What are the Ennead? Ennead means group of 9 in Greek. In Kemet, they were called Pesjet. The 9 Neteru were Atom, the sun, Shu, air, Tefnut, moisture, Geb, earth, and Nut, sky, Ausar and Auset, Seth, and Nephthys. Okay, You read pages 274 to 277 of Ancient Egypt by Lorna Oakes and Lucia Galen, and also Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. They break this down, dealing with the Ennead. Well, that's all in the Black Panther comic book. So when we deal with the Black Panther and especially the movie Black Panther, I've done lectures on this. I mean, the Black Panther, man, reconnects us to African history and culture. It's a deep movie. I had to do a lot of research to really be able to do my lectures dealing with the film Black Panther. Okay, so and then the language spoken in the film Black Panther is isiXhosa. isiXhosa is a Bantu language. All right, just like Kiswahili is a Bantu language as well. The language spoken in the film Black Panther is a real language. It's isiXhosa, and it's spoken in Southern Africa. Okay, so we deal with different African nations and civilizations like Carthage. Okay, and we deal with Hannibal Barca. Okay, Hannibal in the Battle of Cannae, 216 BC, and what happened to Carthage? Carthage destroyed by Rome, 146 BCE, before the Common Era. We deal with Ta-Nehisi. We deal with Great Zimbabwe. It's a ton of information that we deal with in the class. Okay, so this is a 10-week online class. Now, we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, so you can go back and watch it anytime. Okay, you can go back and watch it as much as you want to, and even after the 10-week online course is over with, these are actual slides from the class, by the way. After the 10-week online class is over with, you can still have access to the full class. You can watch it as much as you want to. Right? And we deal with the Moors, the Africans known as the Moors, going into the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, in 711 AD. And they fight against the Vandals and the Visigoths. And I wish we had never taught them, okay? Because everything we taught the Europeans came back to kick us in the behind. George G.M. James talks about the Moors and stolen legacy. He said the Moors were the custodians of the ancient Egyptian mystery system. The Moors are taking the teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe, and this is going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. And when you look at Columbus is using nautical instruments based upon technology that the Moors introduced into Europe. All that stuff came back on us. The Moors introduced something called a fire stick. Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay talks about this. They introduced something called a fire stick, which is a long stick that fire one projectile. The Europeans are going to take this and create the first firearm in Europe in mid 14th century AD, right around 1346 AD. So when they're going into these lands and conquering people, they're taking firearms, the cannon, the Bible, alcohol, disease, all types of things. All this stuff comes back to all of this comes back to kick us in the behind. Okay. So then we go through and look at a timeline of history so we can put all this history in chronological order. All right. We deal with General Tariq ibn Ziyad, 711 AD, who goes into the Iberian Peninsula, and the Moors fight against the Vandals and the Visigoths, and where they land it's called Tariq's Mountain, or Jebel Tariq, also known as Gibraltar, or the Rock of Gibraltar, named after Tariq ibn Ziyad. We talk about Saint Maurice, the Moor, the Black Moor Saint Maurice, who became a patron saint to Germany. So we have to, especially during African American History Month, Black History Month, we have to deal with this type of history. Okay. Yes, we talk about yes, we have to talk about the history of slavery, but put it into historical perspective. Okay. This is, you have to deal with the history before 1441, before the transatlantic slave trade begins. You have to deal with the history before 1526 and the Spanish are taking Africans into the territory we call South Carolina and Georgia. You have to deal with the history before 1619 in Virginia. And the 20 and odd Africans are on the White Lion pirate ship in exchange for food and water and supplies. We can't start our history conquered by Europeans, shackled in chains. Okay, our history doesn't begin there. And if you think that your history starts in slavery, you'll mistakenly think anything you do after slavery is somehow progress. These are the national flags of Corsica and Sardinia. Okay, the French island of Corsica and the Italian island of Sardinia. They have the Moors' heads on them because the Moors were in those areas, and it took a monumental effort to conquer the Moors. So they have the Moors, the African Moors' heads on their national flags today. When you research this, they still have them on their national flags today. Okay, and then we deal with things like Christopher. We have to deal with Columbus, and one of the books we look at is Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, Slavery and the Rise of European Capitalism. We look at Columbus and what was Columbus searching for? What was his deal with King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella? But when, Columbus never comes to the land that we call the United States of America. The closest he comes here is Cuba, which is 90 miles away. He never comes to the land that we call the United States of America. Where does he go? His first voyage in 1492, he goes into the Bahamas, what he calls San Salvador, which means Saint Savior. He goes into Cuba. He goes to Hispaniola. And on the western portion of the island of Hispaniola, the western third of the island of Hispaniola, is Santo Domingo or Saint Dominique, or what becomes Haiti or Haiti. Okay, Haiti coming from the name from the Taino, Haiti. And then we know that we know France is going to take over Haiti. Okay, take over and they'll take over that western third called Saint Dominique, and then you have the Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1804, and the Haitians are going to call it Haiti. Those Africans are going to call it Haiti. But because of the Haitian Revolution, and because partly because France is spending so much money, about to go bankrupt, fighting the Haitians, they sell the land that they have here, the Louisiana territory, 828,000 square miles of land for less than 3 cents an acre. The U.S. buys that for about $15 million. And what this does is this doubles the territory of the U.S. at the time and increases the need for more African slave labor here in the U.S. because the U.S. carves out about 15 states out of the territory that they buy from France. Now, we know France stole it from Native Americans and African people who were already here. France had no legal claim to it. But because of the increase of land that the U.S. gets, this increases the need for African slave labor in those territories that they decide to have slavery. So we get to see how all these different historical events are connected. And Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, these Caribbean islands that were conquered by Columbus over 500 years ago have never recovered from what happened to them. They've never recovered from what Spain did to them. They never recover from what Spain did to them, or Great Britain. We know that Great Britain takes over Jamaica and colonizes Jamaica. Okay, Jamaicans, they never recover from that. This is why many of these Caribbean nations are seeking reparations from these European nations, rightfully so. All right, so this is just a brief overview. There were over 200 slides in the class. Okay, if you like this type of information, go ahead and register for our online class. We have the link in the thread of this broadcast here, and this helps support the African History Network. This helps us stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay the bills. And the class is on 2 different digital platforms. I have to pay each month for those platforms. So this helps support all of this. The class is on sale, only $80, regularly $130. It's a 10-week online class. It takes a lot to teach the class. I teach that class on Saturday. On Sundays, I teach from ancient from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And that's both classes are 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. each day, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. If you miss class, that's fine. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime, not a problem. If you've taken any of my online classes in the past, email me at ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com. You get a 50% discount. Okay. Now, as soon as you register, there's content you can start watching. You can watch last week's class, and there's bonus content. There are also going to be 15 bonus lectures that you get from me when you register for Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. It's the Michael Imhotep 15 lecture bundle pack, the Black History Month bundle pack. You get the lectures in digital download format. Okay, so they'll be there because I'm uploading those this weekend. So you get 15 extra lectures. So it's a huge value that you get. Now, you can register for both classes. We have a bundle pack where you can register for both classes for only $120. The classes are regularly $230 each. We have a bundle pack. You can register for both classes for $120. Okay. And if you've taken any of my online classes before, and I've been teaching these classes since 2017, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, I've been teaching that on and off since 2017. And from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, I've been teaching that since 2021, because there's so much information I had for Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade. There's so much information. I could not get all of it into 10, 11, or 12 weeks. So from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, I had to split that up. Now, see, this is the binder that I use for the second class, where we deal with history from. We start with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Okay, but this is the binder. Everything from the Louisiana Purchase to the Missouri Compromise of 1820 to the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, Mexican-American War 1846, 1848, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo 1848. We did all that in the second class. So we can go through and analyze history in Dr. Leonard Jeffries is one of my teachers. So when he teaches history in 50-year increments. Okay. So this is where I learned this from. So we go through in each class with from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement, 1865 to 1968. We go through and look at history in 10, 15, 20-year increments. There's a timeline of history that we look at, but then we go through and break this down to understand what led to the Civil War taking place. We look at the Compromise of 1877. We look at, like last week, the class we just did this past week, we looked at the American Nativist Party that was created around 1854 called the Know Nothings. And this is they were created right before the Republican Party was created in 1854, because the Republican Party was created as a backlash to the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which allowed the territory out west. It left up to the people moving to that territory to determine whether or not they were going to have slavery, which infuriated a lot of abolitionists. Okay, this allows slavery to spread, and you're going to have armed conflict in the Kansas territory called Bleeding Kansas from 1855 to 1859. You have armed conflict between pro-slavery and anti-slavery groups in the Kansas territory. It's called Bleeding Kansas, right? These are events that lead up to the Civil War exploding. The Civil War didn't just happen out of anywhere. They were trying to keep a civil war from happening, going back. When you look at things like the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which dealt with organizing the land that the U.S. got from the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. And the Missouri Compromise of 1820, it allowed Missouri to come into the Union as a slaveholding state and allowed Maine to come in as a free state because they kept a balance between slaveholding states and free states. So in 1820, there was 11 slaveholding states and 11 free states. So they kept a balance, but the Missouri Compromise passes Congress. Okay, this becomes law, passes Congress, and it states that slavery is prohibited in the remaining territories. Okay, this is organizing that land that the U.S. got from the Louisiana Purchase. Well, in the Dred Scott decision, March 6, 1857, the U.S. Supreme Court rules that the Missouri Compromise of 1820 is unconstitutional, which nullifies Dred Scott's argument because Wisconsin was one of the territories that Dred Scott was taken into. Wisconsin was free territory because of the Missouri Compromise. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the Missouri Compromise is unconstitutional. Now, the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 is going to replace the Missouri Compromise, but here you have the judicial branch of the federal government interpreting law from the legislative branch of the federal government, and they nullify Dred Scott's argument. A lot of people say, oh, they said, no black man has a right, another white man has to honor, and black people can never be citizens, things like this. They don't read the rest of the ruling. They rule that the Missouri Compromise is unconstitutional. So that's 1857. Now that's after the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 became law, which is part of the Compromise of 1850, which dealt with 5 bills to organize the land that the U.S. got from Mexico after the Mexican-American War ended. So we go through history and look and see what leads to the Civil War taking place, 1861, 1865, attack on Fort Sumter, April 12, 1861. After Lincoln wins the presidential election, November 6, 1860. He's the Republican candidate for president. The Republican Party is only 6 years old at this time. Republican Party wasn't founded until 1854. They're only 6 years old. 6 weeks after Lincoln wins the presidency, becomes president-elect, South Carolina becomes the first state to secede from the Union, December 20th, 1860. And this is going to lead to the Civil War exploding. Then we deal with the Reconstruction era, 1865, 1877, which is not taught a lot in schools. And teachers don't really know about the history of Reconstruction. Okay? Teachers really don't know about the history of Reconstruction. So I'm going to show you this, and then we got to get out of here because I have a lot of work to do. And I have to teach 2 classes this weekend and do a presentation. And I have to do Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. And I do my radio show Sunday night, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the African History Network show. So we're on Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight, but Sundays we're on 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Okay, so let me close this here. Time Magazine has this piece. I did a presentation for Tech Town here in Detroit. What was that, Wednesday? Did it Tuesday for Black History Month. I did a presentation for them. I was on a panel discussion dealing with reparations for Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated on Wednesday. Today was my slow day, by the way. Today was the way this week is going. Thursday was my slow day. This article right here from Time Magazine. We talked about it before here on the show. This is crucial. The new report finds that 45 states are failing to teach students about the period that shaped race relations after the Civil War. This is dealing with Reconstruction. This article is from January 2022. Okay, from January 2022, 45 states out of 50 are failing to teach students about Reconstruction. And when you read this article, this is from January 12, 2022. One of the things they talk about in here is they connect the political violence during Reconstruction targeting African Americans and white Republicans, but especially African Americans, to keep us from voting. They connect that to the January 6th, 2021 insurrection. Okay, which and that dealt with trying to overturn election results, especially nullify votes from African Americans. So all this history is connected. Okay, so read that one. All right, so look, we have to get out of here. So be sure to register for the online courses that I teach. How you all like this type of information? Give us a thumbs up on the broadcast. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a heart. Give us a like. How you all like this type of information? You can register for the online classes. I posted the link here. If you've taken any of my classes before, email me at ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com or the ahnshow@gmail.com. You can email me there as well. And you'll get a 50% discount also. And then also, if you like this type of information, you want to support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN Show, paypal.me / the AHN Show. And we have the link there in the broadcast here as well. All right. Well, look, we have to get out of here. I'll be on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. So you can watch on Facebook and YouTube, Roland Martin on Facebook and YouTube. You can download the Black Star Media app and watch there. Download the Black Star Media app to your iPhone, Android phone, to your devices, Roku devices. So 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm a panelist each Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We have to get out of here. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.